Hi.
My name's J.C. McCauley.
I'm Naisha McCauley, and you're watching AccessTV.org.
All right, my friends, once again, it is indeed time to get our talk on. It's Morning Talk with me, your host, J.C. McCauley, along with the champions of talk. It is indeed Friday, which means we've got talk champion Cleo Duke-Wright in the house. Good morning, Miss Cleo. How are you?
How you doing, Stan, this morning?
I'm doing just fine.
That's good.
Doing just fine. Time to get our talk on for the week. And
I left my house. My son said, "Well, what are you going to talk about today?" I said, "I don't know." Whatever comes up, that's what we're going to talk about.
Wait, I don't know. We talk about what we talk about.
That's right.
Yeah.
Talk about what we talk about.
That's morning talk. That's how we talk. That's how our people talk. We just get together and start talking.
And just keep on going.
And it keeps on going. All you need is the opportunity and the occasion to get your talk on.
Right.
And so that's what happens. It's sort of like when you go to the barber shop or to the beauty salon.
Oh yeah.
And then it just takes off from there. That's the community think tank is your barber shop or your beauty salon.
That's right. You get used to each other. You just go in there and start talking.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you order food.
In there all day.
I don't think they do that as much as they used to do. You know, go out and get some chicken or some Chinese.
That's too funny.
And just keep on.
How was your week?
Oh, my week was really, really busy.
Mm-hmm.
Really busy.
Mm-hmm.
I had a lot of transporting to do and family stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was busy, and by the time yesterday came, why don't people just agree with you? Why don't they just do what you tell them to do? Why do they always have to be so ornery? I mean, you know I'm right, so just do it. No, that's not the way it goes.
Mm-mm.
It goes like they're right, I'm right,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you got to put a little pressure on them, and then they put a little pressure on you. It's not like when you had little kids. You said, go do it. And they had to do it. Whether they liked it or not, they may give you a little lip and a little frown, but they wouldn't did it. But grown folks, they're different.
Grown folk are totally different, and grown folk get into their, they still need, I guess you could say they still need management, whether it's on the job or at home.
Right.
And so you can't just give them a directive. You have to explain everything to folk. And then you got to wrestle back and forth and go on and on and on and on.
My husband has a balance problem,
Mm-hmm.
and so now there's a spoon on the kitchen floor. He dropped a spoon.
Mm-hmm.
Now he know darn well he can't pick up that spoon. Don't pick up that spoon because you're going to lose your balance. You're going to fall. I'm going to pick up that spoon. I'm going to pick up that spoon. Nobody can tell me I can't pick up that spoon. So now he starts picking up the spoon. I said, go ahead and pick up the spoon. You pick up the spoon. I'm not picking you up off the floor. I'm picking up that spoon. You can't tell me I can't pick up the spoon. Oh God! It's really crazy. It's really, when you're taking care of somebody, it's really crazy because they're losing their independence,
Mm-hmm.
and I guess that's very hard when you're losing and you can't do what you used to do.
Mm. Mm.
And people are telling you, everybody's telling you what to do.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a hard thing to get used to.
I can imagine.
You know, like a little thing like a spoon. Tell me I can't pick up a spoon. I can't do that over there. What are you talking about? Yes, I can. You know, so I have to give it to other caretakers who are having a difficult time with taking care of a grown person who has been independent and did what they wanted to do their whole life.
I would imagine, doubly difficult when you consider it being family.
Oh,
because
yes. You have to make a lot of decisions that you never had to make before.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another difficult thing. And you worry about the person because they think they're independent, and then so they're going to go try to do something and they may hurt themselves. And so, oh my gosh, just the worry of them hurting themselves. My husband went downstairs. He can't go downstairs
Mm-hmm.
because he's fallen many times. Downstairs, up the street,
Mm-hmm.
into the pizza shop, order his grinder, his soda, his potato chips, and see, he doesn't pay. They just give it to him, and then I pay later. So he goes in there and he gets all this stuff, and he comes back and says, "I'm at the polls working." I'm nowhere around. And so everybody downstairs is telling him, "Willie, you know you're not supposed to be down here. You know you're not supposed to. You know your wife's going to come down here and she's at the pole. I don't give a." So back up the stairs he goes slowly, and he made it. And he had his grinder and his soda and his potato chips and whatever else he made. He made it up the stairs. Now, I'm saying, boy, he made it up the stairs. Do you think he told me? He didn't tell me anything. I looked at the plate. I said, "How'd you get that grinder?" You know? And so I go down to pay the bill the next day.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Willie was down here. I told Willie he wasn't supposed to be down here. And so all the way to the grinder shop, to the pizza shop, people are telling me, Willie was down here. We told him he shouldn't be down here. He kept walking. He kept walking with his 2 steps at a time to the pizza shop and got it. And then he went back. But that is so. I don't let him. It's rare because he walks once like this.
He walks very slowly.
Really slowly. And
does he have to now? He has to cross the street, right? Or is it the grinder shop? It's on the same block. Two doors down?
Right. 2 doors down.
Okay, all right.
So he goes in there and he does all his cussing and carrying on and telling people he don't give a and you can do this and you can do that, you know, acting out. And then they come back, but you know, and they all say, "I'm gonna tell on you." And they surely did. And the next day I heard it. I heard how he did this and he did that, and he went up this, and he really walked so terribly. If you ever saw him, you know. So those are the things that make me nervous because he's fallen down the stairs before, and he's fallen over the banister, and he's fallen. You know, I put him in a wheelchair wherever I go because I can't get him. It takes too long to get somewhere, and he has his walker, and he trips. He kind of trips sometimes.
The walker keeps him from falling, but that doesn't mean he won't get hurt. Or what happens if the walker gets away from him?
So I got a wheelchair upstairs. I got a transport chair in the car at all times. So when I take him somewhere, I just pull out that transport chair.
Wow. Wow.
When I take him to church, I put him in a transport chair. But he doesn't like the feet things. You know, the feet that you rest your feet on. So
he wants to be a somewhat independent, move himself around with his own feet.
So he you know, the man's preaching. He walking around like this and going over here like and turn around like this. I said, "Oh my God, please." Be still, be still. But everybody seems to understand and are very gracious to him. But when he's in church,
sometimes older folk kind of regress. They become big children, and except they're much more forceful than little children, and they have had a lifetime, as you mentioned, of doing what they want. So this is a huge challenge. It's a huge challenge for lots of spouses and sons and daughters, and what they have to go through.
What you go through when you, yes. And he was a challenge when he was in the hospital,
Mm-hmm. And that's particularly so for quote unquote our people, because we generally don't put them in homes and stuff. They're with us.
Yes.
So you take on that. The burden. I was gonna say you take on the extra burden, but the burden just continues. Particularly if it's a wife, because the wife has been taking care of the whole family her entire life,
and still taking care. But you do until you can't do. That's the Connecticut. You can get the home care thing.
Mm-hmm.
You do until you can't do. I refuse it because so many people coming in and out of your house all the time. It's helpful to a point, but the bottom line is you're still there, and you still have the bulk of the responsibility. They're gonna come in and do something and leave. Well, you're still gonna get everything. I can't see the big difference, because but he may fall. He is gonna fall. But he's still going to fall. He's not going to fall when you're here. He's going to fall when you're not here.
Right.
So, what? Oh, he may fall down the stairs. It may,
May a lot of things happen.
May, yeah.
Right. This might happen. Well, yeah. Unfortunately, you can't live life relative to what might happen.
Right.
Well, what if? Whoa, this could happen. Well, what?
And he's very well. He's very well behaved when they're there. When they go out the door, he's not gonna be all that well behaved. Now he wants what he wants.
He wants it when he wants it.
Yeah. So all of us people who are doing this, I'm just learning. I know some people have been doing it for years and years and years, taking care of spouses or taking care of mothers. I was with a woman the other day when I was at the polls. She took care of her mother 24/7, and her husband wasn't willing to even take care of the mother when she was out to feed her. So her mother one day went without food.
Oh my!
And he didn't feed her. He's no longer with the family because she said, "I'm sorry, my mother. I have to take care of my mother." And she did. She took care of her mother.
Wow.
And the gentleman. Sometimes that's a good reason. Sometimes it's not a good reason. I know family who they worked all their lives together. They sent all of their children, which was 4, to college. And the last one is getting out of college, and her mother is in a nursing home. And he wants, now we're free. We could go do all the things that we want to do. And she takes her mother out of the nursing home to care for her. And so all those dreams that the husband had for them being by themselves and doing the things that they want, they could not do. After how many years of marriage, 20, 30 years of marriage, they divorced. he married someone else, and they traveled, and they bought a home, and they did this, and the wife took care of her mother till she died, and ended up all alone. You know, so you gotta weigh the pros and cons to what you do, you know, because there's different situations. It's not always you should do one thing or the other.
Right. No, it is quite a it's quite a challenge, life. I'm actually on my I'm here looking on my Facebook page because there was something I saw that I saved, but it's not I don't see it on the computer. If I was using my phone, I could show it to you, but it's not on the computer. The little Facebook, the little videos that pop up all the time, and I don't know how to get them on my on the laptop here. All right, well.
You know, there's one thing that I had to smile about because I'm fixing 3 meals a day, right? The breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And it seems like when I finish one, I'm doing the other. It seems like they all come together. It takes up the whole day. And so I wondered to myself, I said, did I ever do this? Did I ever make 3 meals a day? Because this is hard. You know, how do you make 3 meals a day and do something? You know, so I'm thinking back in my history with my kids coming up and all that. And I said, did I ever make 3 meals a day? And actually, I never did, because they were in daycare. You know, so they had a meal there. In those days, you didn't have to bring your food to the daycare. The daycare fed them. You know, and then they were in school, and school fed them lunch. I fed them breakfast, and school fed them lunch. And then we'd get home, and we'd just have a little dinner and blah, blah, blah. And it wasn't so hard. But this 3 meals a day is something. And so I'm thinking, when I was a kid, most women stayed home, and they had to make that's a lot, and they had to make 3 meals a day and clean the house and take care of the kids. Oh, I'd rather go to work.
Life was so things were so different in what the societal expectations were different, in the roles that people played were different.
They were always there. They didn't seem to be in such a hurry, or it didn't seem to be a lot of work. At least for a little kid, they just were, you know, kind of calm, doing all that work. But that's a lot of work. That really is a lot of work. And I said, boy, I would rather work my 8 hours and come home and do a little this, a little that, you know, give the kids a bath and put them to bed. And that's a lot easier than being home all day long. And we used to look down on women after, what was it, the end of the 60s, the 70s or something?
Yeah, the women's quote unquote liberation.
Yeah, we kind of looked down on women who didn't go. You don't have a job? Of course, they had the toughest job of all. The toughest job of all.
They managed the home.
They managed the home.
And folk came along and turned managing the most important role that a human being could have. Managing the most important unit, the family.
The family.
That society has. And it was demeaned and turned into something that was beneath someone, which is really kind of tragic if you really stop and think about it. Because for many, many, many years, our folks, particularly the women, went off and managed someone else's home for them.
Right.
And so, home management is very, very admirable. And if you put your parents or kids in a daycare or a home type situation, rest home, nursing home, someone's managing them. Yeah, I mean, so somebody, your life has to be. You got bills, food inventory has to be done.
Right.
If you're not buying the food, like back in the days of old, food had to be canned so that it could be stored for the wintertime. There was a lot of work that went into it, and it's all demeaned and thrown out.
Like,
and it's a very sad situation.
It is, and then you have to turn around and do part of that. It's very difficult,
Mm-hmm.
at least for a person who worked your whole life and really didn't. I mean, you managed the home, but you really didn't manage it. I mean,
you were managing it.
You managed it,
but you did it's done so seamlessly and so effortlessly because it is what one does that it doesn't seem like an overbearing work. Plus, it's something that people enjoy. Just like people enjoy going to their work and working their job and get a sense of fulfillment because they go to work. Why would anyone feel less fulfilled taking care of their family? It's like you should the idea or the notion that, well, how can you be fulfilled taking care of your family all day? But you should be fulfilled doing reports, working your behind off for a boss that really doesn't care about you, unless there's some favor you can provide, and then give you a little menial pay, not as much as the other guys. And that's supposed to be fulfilling. But at home, that's like, people buy into these things.
Well, we actually, as a society, we bought into it and
Mm-hmm.
and downed the woman who stayed home and took care of her children and was there for her husband when he came home, and the family was more at ease that way. Not so much tension because you came
Not so much
home
tension.
And you knew mom was there and she took care of things. She gave you your snack after school and change your school clothes. You go outside and play.
Mm-hmm.
Dad comes home 5 o'clock. You better be in the house because you all sat down to dinner. It was. I met a lady the other day who says she's at 5 o'clock. Her mother always ate at 5 o'clock. Now she's going in her late 60s and she still eats at 5 o'clock. She says, I don't care. My mother eats at 5 o'clock. I still eat at 5 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
So she still eats at 5 o'clock. And when I think back on those times, it was nice.
But it was very nice. And you
nice
spent time. You spent time with your family.
Yes.
You had friends. But you weren't lonely and depressed and dejected because you didn't quote unquote have friends. You had family. What
family.
better relationships can one have than with one's family? If you really stop and think about it, people are chasing after so many things that are right in front of them if they would only realign their values.
Right.
Our values are now set toward acquiring stuff.
Other people tell you what our values should be,
Mm-hmm.
so they could make their money or do whatever
Profit off
their
of you.
goal is, and we buy into that stuff, and it is not to our best benefit.
One of the viewers says here, the home life is keeping America aware of the best country in the world, because taking care of yourself and family properly is where love for Jesus and one another begins.
Amen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Taking care of family. That's. If I had to do it all over again, I would not have. I worked through the pregnancies. I only went in the hospital the day I left work the day or 2 days before I was supposed to have the child.
Mm-hmm.
Came back to work, one child I had on Friday and went back to work on Monday. Yeah, and then the other child, I took, I had the 4 months off. I had 4 months off of both of them, but one was a preemie, so I took it when they got out of the hospital. But I worked right up to the day. I went right back to work after. I could remember the most horrible time. One of the most horrible days that I could remember with my children is the first day I had to leave them with a babysitter or take them to the nursery. That was really, both times was really a bad day for me, a hard day to let them go. But I worked all the way. Now, if I had to do it again, I would not have done that. I would not do that. I would stay home until they were, going to school, and I'd have a routine, because I'm looking at parents who did have routines with their children and all the way up, and it seems to be a more stable thing for the child. When they can look back and see how you do things, how you do this, how you do that, how mommy did it like this, I didn't have that, so I didn't give that to my children. But that's wonderful. I would do that in a heartbeat.
I think a lot of people would, and I think slowly but surely people are starting to come back to that. We're in the middle of a very serious culture war in the United States. I can't speak for other places in the world, but I know in the United States we're in the middle of a culture war, and there's a tug of war between the traditional values and values that people want to project onto society. It's not like the values that they are trying to impose on society are somehow, long-standing values. They're not. They're really kind of like experimental values. Yes. There is no best practices and records of, these old things. I mean, these new things that people are trying to force onto folks. But there's a big push to eliminate or mute some old values. And old values don't necessarily mean that they were always the right way of doing stuff. But there's value in the majority of those things, like family and spending time with your kids. It's my theory that the pandemic forced that, at least in America, because everything was shut down for so long. And during that shutdown, people were forced to reconcile with themselves. And it didn't take very long for people to say, you know what? Why am I working my behind off to get stuff I don't really need?
That's right.
And I really don't even want this stuff. And I think it's evident that people don't really want it, because after like 3 or 4 weeks of having it, they don't use it anymore. It's like you're buying stuff and it's just junk. In my theory, there's people are addicted to consumption. They're as addicted to consumption as they are to pornography, or to drugs, or to work, or whatever. People have these addictions where they try to fill these voids, and I think consumption is the number one addiction. Then people get depressed because they can't buy a new phone. They can't afford something. You can't afford it means that you cannot afford it. So you go without it. It's like you have to be able to get something that you don't need. And because you can't get it, you're depressed. But people found comfort just being with one another. Families actually sat down and they ate a meal that they had to fix because they couldn't run out and go get it. And they found out that the food tastes better. There's something in the food that you can't get from Popeye's love, right? Someone actually cared about you and made this for you. All of those things are communicated when you have a meal and you sit down, and even if you sit down in the family and argue, at least you're communicating and fussing and sharing with one another.
That's right.
And you can resolve differences. All of this is wiped out when you have a society that's focused only on self. What I want instead of what we need.
I met a woman in a laundromat who works 7 days a week. No, she works 6 days a week. I said, you work 6 days a week? I said, do you have children? She said, well, her oldest was 20, but her youngest was 5.
5.
And I said, you work 2. She says, that's why I got to get these clothes done today, because tomorrow I got off. And I want to spend some time with my 5-year-old. I want to spend some time with my kids. So I got to do this work today. And I said, and she said she was working 7 days a week. That was mandatory. 7 days a week was mandatory.
For her job, it was mandatory that she worked 7 days a week?
When she first started, she started, I guess, 2014.
Mm-hmm.
She worked 7 days a week. Guess who she works for?
Who?
She works for the post office.
The post office. Mm-hmm.
She worked for the post office. And I did not know. She told me that the post office, well, she's a carrier, so she has to pack up all. And I didn't know you have to pack up all your mail yourself.
You have to bundle everything yourself.
You have to, and you have to do all of that yourself, plus deliver. So I'm saying that job has to be more than in 8 hours if you got to do all that. She says, well, she works maybe 12, 16 hours a day. Sometimes she says to me, and I think that that's crazy. And they have these contracts. I did not know on Sundays the post office delivers for Amazon. I didn't know that. She told me Amazon is Sundays.
Wow, so they have more work than they have employees. And that sounds like they're short staffed. So that it's mandatory that you have to work as a condition of employment. So the work to the employer, the work is all that matters. They really don't care about your family.
Right.
Or you. Because if you can't make it, they have no problem telling you, well, if you can't make it, I'm going to get somebody else. Because it's just work that needs to get done. So you have to be the one that determines.
Right.
Is this work worth the cost of me working? Is me. Is you. You're spending yourself to get this work done. And in exchange for giving of yourself, they compensate you. And so what do you do with the money? I mean, is this compensation worth your life? Because you're not getting that time back. Time is the most important thing you have. And you are exchanging your time, your worth, your value for money.
Yep.
At the end of the day, and when you need money to pay rent and buy food and clothes, that's really all you need. Now, I remember my sister, who was 2 years younger than I am, 18 months technically, 2 years. She's 18 months younger than me, but she always was in fashion, and she always wore something new to school because she made it. She would sew her own clothes. When we were in school, in fact, my mom had a room, and they called it was the sewing room. They had all bolts of fabric in there. Her and my sister would go shopping for fabric like people would go to the mall. And they would buy kinds of fabric, and this would be nice for the winter time. And I can hear them having conversations right now. And so she had a sewing room, and there was sewing machines in there, and they would make all their clothes.
When I was a kid, most people had sewing machines.
Yeah.
My mother had a Singer sewing machine.
Singer sewing machine. Yep.
You know, it pop up. I saw one in the secondhand store where you use your knee. You know,
with the side pedal.
She used her knee to start it, and the little wheel, and yes, and she made our Easter clothes. She didn't make, a lot of our clothes, but she always made Easter clothes.
You could buy the what was the popular? It began with a B. There was a popular pattern.
Butterfly, butter. It was butter something.
Yeah, the
patterns.
The patterns. They would be in a. You could get. They had a book of fashions, and you could see all the different fashions in there, and the patterns were there. Then you could make them, and
yep.
I used to make puppets, Muppet puppets, on the sewing machine. I remember that. Yeah, she would sew stuff, and she always had something to wear.
Simplicity.
Simplicity. Buttress.
Simplicity.
Was buttress? Not buttress.
But I forget what it was, but it was a little more difficult patterns with that one than it was simplicity. Simplicity was supposed to be, just simple patterns and that you could do. That I made my first skirt from a simplicity.
Well, somebody still sews, because I know, we go to Walmart every week, and there's a fabric section.
Yep, there is.
In Walmart. And the fabric section, and then of course the little table.
And they got the big book. They got the big book that you can look at.
So someone is sewing.
Yeah,
but if you don't sew, then you have to go out and buy the fashions.
Right.
You have to shop for the clothes, and that's ultimately where they want. So it's kind of like undermine that whole thing and turn you into a consumer. And we're addicted to consumption. That's my theory. We are addicted to spending our resources. Therefore, we just become consumers. We become consumers. We're as necessary for the consumer. We're as necessary as consumers for the commercial market as drug addicts are for the drug dealer. And people are addicted to spending. And so as long as you spend, so addicted do they want to keep you, that even if you can't work, they will send you money so you can spend it, because they have to keep you as a consumer. They need you out there buying.
So whoever stays home, I really do believe somebody ought to be home when children come home. Off of school, send them off to school. They don't have that luxury of coming home. My parents worked, coming home. But the whole project was full of women who didn't work, so you always felt at home everywhere. When you got into the project, when you got near there, even if you lived down the street, most of the women are home. So if your mother wasn't home, somebody was home to take care of the problem, whatever the problem was, if you had a problem. We had such a much calmer life. We were able to not worry about so much. Like children worry about a lot today. We didn't have to worry about it. We could believe in Santa Claus till we were 11 years old. And we were allowed. We were allowed to believe in the good fairy and all of those things. And I don't think our kids are allowed to do that anymore.
Those things allow you to have an imagination. The greatest natural resource that human beings have is their imagination. It's out of the imagination that spaceships are made, the cars are made, the new inventions come. They come from your mind. And if you don't imagine, then you don't. It's like critical thinking. If someone can rob you of the ability to imagine, to think critically, to make music, Like you have music or art. These are things that cause they translate ideas and thoughts, and they're transferred to paper. And then you're being an artist and you're creating things, or you're writing your ideas down in poems and songs and storytelling.
Yeah, what would we do without the artists? What would we do if all we had was a computer and telling us what to do, and not thinking at all, and not creating stories?
You would be programmed to do what you're told.
Yes.
To think what you're told to think.
Instead of,
Right.
Go out. One of the best things our parents used to say to us when we were young was, will you go outside and play and stop running in and out of the house? So
don't come in and out the house. Oh yeah, that.
Go out there. So you found your friends. You couldn't go back in the house. So you created things. You created forts. You pretended. You did.
You say
all
fort?
kinds of forts.
Oh yeah. I got.
We used to create forts and we created and stories. We wrote stories. We did just all kinds of things with nothing but our minds and us being together. Did we invented things? We pretended so and so. Because I ran around. I ran around telling stories all the time. I would run into people's houses and I would tell them stories. And those those Salada tea things had a little saying. You used to have a little saying on them. One time, I tore all of those off of the tea, and I think it was on Thanksgiving. It was Halloween, and when they gave me a candy or something, I gave them a Salada tea saying, and I did tell them a story. And I told them a story, and my father came home and saw that I had just taken all the tea things, and he didn't even have to ask who it was. He said, Cleo did this, because Cleo did this. That's the kind of person I was. But it was an imagination, and I created Amethyst. Of course, I had to kill her off, but eventually. But, and all kinds of people, and we did stories. We created stories. I got people together to do those things. But other people got drew. Just so many things that we did with nothing. Pots and pans were great, right? We played with pots and pans. We made a band out of pots and pans, and things like that. I don't see that so much anymore.
Well, I live across the street from a little housing community. And I was looking over there yesterday, and the kids, because there's a fence all the way around that place, is wrought iron. Not like this the new age or the new way or a new school, however they want to say it. Look like wrought iron. That's really aluminum. That if you pull it hard enough, I could pull the fence apart. This is old school wrought iron. But the kids, and you can't squeeze through it. Children can't squeeze through it. That's how close they are. And the kids were all over in there playing. They were riding their little bikes together, and the girl was throwing rocks on the ground, and they would break. And you could see her looking at them, because she could see inside the rock. She wasn't being destructive. She was exploring. And they were throwing the little stones to see how far they could throw them. But they were playing. And there's the little group of kids over here is just out having fun and playing. And, there's a safe space for them. And you don't have to worry about someone running into the street or anything like that. And, where you have communities that are tight-knit, not up on, but tight-knit, and they have things in common, can share ideas, and it just creates for a great opportunity. But they were outside, which was good. You know, as you mentioned, a lot of kids now are inside in front of their devices, just being dumbed down. You know, they're very powerful devices. You could do all kinds of things. You can explore the world. You can get a college degree, or you could just dump your mind into a endless pit of horrors, or online too. It's a marketplace for everything. If you want it, you can order it online. If you want to see it, you can watch it online. Anything and everything is there, good and bad. So parents really have to be the determiner of what
their kids are doing.
What their kids are doing. My daughter, she floats back and forth between her room and a space we have down here on the first floor, which is where they would go to school when they couldn't go to school, stay home and go to school. So that space is all still back there. My daughter, 7, has her space back. She's there all day. So she has a YouTube channel, and she's always creating content. So we pretty much know what she's doing. She's managing her YouTube channel, having conversations with all of her followers, and making content. And she makes more content than I do. That's not as long as mine, but I mean, she's creating content. She's like 300-400 shows that she creates, little animated things. But her sister plays games, Roblox and all these other things that the kids are into, and they have these rooms that they go into and talk to one another, and these little side parlors and all this other stuff. And so she can't be in her room all day by herself. I won't let her. So she comes down here, and so she goes back and forth. But I had a shoot last night for the Artist Collective. It was their Rite of Passage end of year program. It was really, really, really nice. It was really nice. It was a very last minute shoot. The regular guy couldn't make it or something like that. So I wound up being over. But long story short, I came home, and I said, "Where's Nia?" She's upstairs. So I called her. What are you doing? So I'm playing. I'm playing game such and such and with. I won't say the name. I tell him it's time for you to get off that thing and come down here, which gave me great joy. Because I'll never forget when I was younger and I called this girl at after 9. That's the last time I ever called a female after 9. Unless it was like for business. Even today at 62, I have a hard time calling a woman after 9. That's how much of an impact the child father had on me. Don't you never call this house after 9 o'clock. Calling my daughter. He just put the fear of God in me, and so I never did that. But that he was right. And so to me, it's inappropriate to be on the phone talking to a boy after 9. Old school. That's just old school. You a girl, you living in this house, you get a lot of freedom, but that ain't one of them. Get off the phone. Tell him you'll call him back. I have to go. Click. And I think that's good.
Is that what you said? I have to go.
I have to go. Right. No argument. Oh, Dad. No, I have to go. Done. And of course, I'm very dramatic. If I tell her that, then I might as well be also talking to her sister, because her sister hears everything. And we have to whisper around 7 because she got super ears. So I could talk to her and talk to them both. Give her the lecture. I talk to them. Well, the other one is older. And bring that tablet where I can see you. I know they can switch screens before you get around to them, but at least the fact that you're there, and because you can't watch your children when they're away from you. So I think there's some things you have to lay out with an understanding that they're human beings. They're going to try all kinds of stuff, whether they boys or girls. And so if you don't set those standards early on,
that's right,
they're gone. And so, and I don't care. It doesn't matter to me what bizarre, crazy things the world is trying to introduce to young people. They stay at my house. My kids stay here. So whatever they're trying to teach you in the world, no. When you get here, it's our world. It's like when you live in a household where they speak different languages. Mm-hmm. I don't care what language they teach you at school and not. When you come home,
English.
You speak this language or speak that. They're very, there's rules for the house, and I think you do young people.
But it's problematic that a lot of young people don't have any rules. They don't know. They're making them up as they go.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have any rules. They didn't have anybody to tell them anything because their parents didn't have any rules. So they don't have any. So now they make them up as they go. And they're gonna get a lot wrong.
They are.
They're gonna get a lot wrong.
They're experimenting, and they're gonna discover best practices, policies, and procedures that apply to everything in life. Mm-hmm. But they don't know, so they'll stumble into the best way to do stuff. Unfortunately, some of them will stumble into it the wrong way. It's like learning that fire burns. Oh, it actually does burn. You learned a valuable lesson.
Yes,
there's other ways to learn it other than to stick your feet or hands in it.
That's right.
But you will learn.
It's like that movie they told. I've told you this many times, but there's movie they told us. They showed us in the 8th grade. They marched the counselor. I think it's Mr. Labby. I think his name was Mr. Labby. He marched us into this room and he showed us this film. Mm-hmm. And the film was about drugs. And the worst part of the film was, I remember this man. He had this blackened all over his eyes, and he was going. He needed drugs, and it was him and this girl, and it was just the most horrible. Oh, it was horrible. And so I said, that is one thing I'm never gonna do, because I don't ever want to be like that. And so when a lot of the kids in that class, or several of the kids in that class, turned to drugs, I kept saying, they were in the room. They saw the movie. Mm-hmm. How could they even think of going on drugs after they saw that movie? It scared me to death. It scared me to death. I was never gonna make my life like that. Mm-hmm. But there were a lot of kids who saw the movie. They had to go through it. They took the drugs. Some of them, some of them stopped, and some of them didn't, and some of them died. So.
Well, it takes a lot of courage to stand up and be different, particularly in a time in life when people are trying to find their way and be accepted. And a desire to be accepted kind of overrides your built-in common sense factors to say, maybe I shouldn't do this, but I want to be liked, or I want to be accepted, or whatever the case is. But it takes an extreme amount of courage to be able to say, nope, if I'm going to be the one standing alone, then I'll be standing alone. But you have to, I think the greatest thing you can give your young people is a sense of identity and being yourself, and not be afraid to be yourself. And don't be afraid to do the right thing. It's the hardest thing. It's harder to do the right thing, but you'll never feel bad about it. Yes. You never feel bad about doing the right thing. It's easier to do the wrong thing, but then you feel bad. So just, if you have the energy and the power, always choose to do the right thing. Do the right thing. Because, once the results of the wrong thing come up, you pay almost any price if you can go back and do it again. But you can't.
Sometimes you just have to stand alone.
Yep. And there's nothing wrong with that.
I never knew the consequences of standing alone until I stood alone. I didn't know. I just knew what I thought was the right thing to do, and I did it. But I didn't know that I would pay for those things. There was a consequence for living your conscience, for doing your conscience, for doing what you felt was right. There's a consequence for that. I didn't know that. I learned that the hard way, that there was a consequence. And then also my parents were a great influence on the three of us. We'd say sometimes to each other, I wonder what mom and dad would say about this. I wonder what mom and dad would, I don't think mom and dad would like that. Or one of us would say, I know you did that because of daddy. I know, because the worst thing to us was to really disappoint. We disagreed with our parents sometimes, but to disappoint our parents was a bigger deal.
I have found in life the greatest thing that you can cause someone, the worst feeling a person can experience, is having let someone down.
Yes.
And I learned that from a guy who was a scoutmaster. I learned this very, 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 very early on. As a leadership tool. And he said, I have visited prisons, and when grown men see me, they cry and hang their heads in shame because they feel so disappointed that they've let me down. Because he was a scoutmaster, talking about, he's very involved in scouting. And so when he saw these guys who knew him, they just, the sense of, and it said to me that if you're in a position of leadership, you are part of your role is to set a standard. It doesn't mean everyone will like it or that everyone will agree, but if the standard is right, they have it. I think that's one of the part of an important role of leadership is you have to set the right thing so that people, when they decide to get there, know where it is. And our young people don't have any idea of what right is anymore. They really don't know. They don't know. I remember my ex-mother-in-law, Bertie Cody. She used to be a teacher here in Hartford. And I'll never forget this. I was walking. It wasn't Barber Street. It must have been. I think at one street. Oh, I don't think that's Nelson. It's one street over from Barber Street.
Westland?
The Westland crosses Barber. I can't think of the street, but it's the Barber Street, and then the next street going toward, Vine, going that way in between. So if you're going down Barber Street, you go one street over.
You go.
It might be Nelson Street. I think in Nelson Street is a cross street though for some reason.
No, Nelson is.
Is that what? So it is Nelson Street.
Yeah.
Nelson. I think it was Nelson Street. I was walking down Nelson Street, and some kid was over there. Not Garden. It's in between Garden and Nelson. No. It's further over. Is it Garden Street? No, because there's a little store. There's a little store. Like if you come up Garden Street, hang a right, and then the next street. Isn't the little community the community centers on that street?
On Garden.
No. On this street I'm talking about is a little community center.
Yeah, the little brick building.
Yeah,
over there.
that they put back there.
Is that Nelson?
I don't know. I couldn't look it up. Martin. It's Martin Street.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, Martin Street. I was walking down Martin Street, and the kid was out there cussing. I says, young man, you shouldn't be cussing. Now, of course, I'm like 20. I might have been 22. Jonathan Smalls. This is going way back. I used to be started volunteering in the school. Mm-hmm. I was 20. I think I was 20. I was volunteering because, of course, at the time I was dating Miss Cody's daughter. Oh. So I worked second shift at Pratt Whitney, and so I was off all day. So I started volunteering up at the school. Anyhow, no, long story short, I'm walking down the street, and this young man is cussing. Every other word, cuss this, cuss that. I says, young man, that kind of language is inappropriate. F you. Who do you think you talking to? I mean, he cussed me out. I said, oh my goodness, you just had no respect for anybody older than you, huh? Psst, psst. You know. I said, so what school do you go to? He told me he went to Clarence Barber. I said, Clarence Barber? I said, you know Bertie Cody? Yeah. Well, you know, I volunteer for her. I'm going out with her daughter. Oh, I'm sorry, mister. Oh, I'm sorry, mister. Please don't tell Miss Cody I was out here cussing. I mean, it's just like that, you know. And so the impact that she had on the kids. Now here I am. He don't know me from Adam. I'm out in the community, and I mentioned her name, and instantly. And I think that when you kind of set that standard for people, they know where to go. And I think it's very important. So, you know, if kids understand that my mom and dad will be disappointed if I do this, I think that's a powerful thing. But the only one that can establish that for the children is their mom and dad.
Right.
You have some extraordinary teachers. There are extraordinary teachers. No, not all teachers are bad. There are some extraordinary teachers, and extraordinary teachers establish that. Because kids remember their teachers.
Oh, I remember every last one of mine.
Their entire life.
Yes.
So teachers have a direct impact. So it's very, very important that you you know.
Someone told me the other day they're writing poetry, and they want to work with children, and said the children are the most important thing. The children we have, and I really don't think that. I think working with children years ago, I found that you can only get so far with them without the parent. You need that parent. You need to engage with that parent. You can't you can't ever ignore the parent, even if they don't want to be engaged. You need to talk to them. You need to tell them what you're doing with your child. You need to bring them in. No matter how you can bring them in, you just need to bring them in, because it was so much easier. And kids love for you to visit their parents. They love for you to talk to their parents. You wouldn't talk to my parents, Cleo. You wouldn't talk to my mother. Yeah, Miss Cleo went over my house. You know, it's they love that. So I learned that when I was working with
You're like
children.
A superstar to them. They see you at the head of the class. A lot of people want to be teachers. A lot of kids wanted to be teachers because of their teacher.
Yes. Wanted to be teachers because of their teachers. Right. And, you know, I think it's such a great reward to work with people. Mm-hmm. And years later have them still remember you. That, you know, we were out at the Taste of Hartford,
mm-hmm.
and that man came up, and said to me, "You saved my life."
I'll never forget that.
I don't remember that man, but I said, "Wow." And he remembered the soup kitchen. He remembered, and I said, "Wow." And I came back after the next day after trying to find you, and before he left, he came over and thanked me again.
Wow. You had left. I think you went to go feed the evil parking meter.
Yes.
And he came back and you were gone. And he stopped. And he said, did Miss Cleo leave? I said, no, she just went. He says, I have to stop. I have to stop because, once again, he said, she saved my life, so I'm stopping just out of respect for her. I'm going to stop for a second. And so you had a profound impact on his life.
And I said, all right, paid in full.
There you go. God bless you.
Paid in full. And there's so many people that you come across, so many people that you talk to, so to remember them all, I was there for 17 years almost.
That's a long time.
To remember them all. I don't remember them all, but I really appreciate being remembered. I said, they didn't pay me enough for this. This is payment. This is that. Thank you is paid in full. When someone comes up and says that to you.
Well, it's like the well done, thou good and faithful servant. You sow a seed and the seed blossoms. One of our commenters here is Luella Tate. She's the person that said about the home life is keeping America aware of. My very first opportunity to be a broadcaster and to speak on the radio was with Luella Tate on her radio program. And if it wasn't for Bishop Tate, I wouldn't be sitting here right now. Literally. Because that's where I got on air opportunity. And then from there, I started to do my own program. But she gave me an opportunity. Young man, you're going to be blessed by God. You need to come and do be on the radio with me. Matter of fact, that's the gospel truth. So you don't know the impact that you have on people's lives,
right?
And so you should always endeavor to make an impact. Let me rephrase that. You should always endeavor to make a positive impact in the life of someone else, because you're going to make an impact. So you have to ask yourself, is this impact going to be a positive one or a negative one? In what way can I say something, do something, demonstrate something, and be a force for positivity and change in the life of someone else? And that I won't realize or know, but down the road somehow it'll make. I think if we did that, we'd be better off as a society, because you can model, and demonstrate through your own behavior the way things should be. That doesn't mean everyone's going to agree with you or accept it, but they'll see that. And I think it's a lot better to do that than it is to tell someone what they need to do. I find a lot of people like to tell folk, well, you need to do this, you need to do that, they need to do this, they need to do that, this need to use it. Well, if you pick up a stone, people will see you picking the stones up. Then they might pick up a couple stones, because you're doing it.
I didn't know I was any kind of impact. I just did what Yeah, and I was taught to do. I did what
Did the right thing.
a lot of my family did, and I just did it because that's what I did, And I didn't, even though they got mad at me a lot of times. They got mad at me and they left me alone in the kitchen by myself. My volunteers, sometimes all my volunteers left, and I had to do breakfast and I had to do lunch, and I didn't have nobody to help me.
Yeah, but it's funny because of course you can look back on this. It doesn't seem like it in the moment, but looking back, it's clear and you can see. You were seemingly by yourself, but you weren't alone.
No, right.
You weren't alone. You weren't alone. See, it doesn't. We don't know when we're by ourselves. It feels like, geez, I'm out here all by myself. Ain't no one gonna help me. I don't know if I keep doing this. Why am I out here doing this? I'm wasting my time. This, that, and third. You going on all this other stuff. But people are seeing it. They either see it once they receive what it is you're delivering, or they may walk past and see you never even know. Or they're thinking about, I should go down and help, but so you're still having an impact because, and then the word says that. Don't grow weary in well doing. Don't grow weary of doing the right thing. In due season, the reward will come. And it's not necessarily a reward for you. It's like planting seed. The seed will grow, but it won't grow if you don't plant it.
That's true.
And we are always planting seeds of some sort.
Whether we know it or not.
Whether we know it or not.
Whether we know it or not, yes. But someone always actually ended up helping me. Because I'd always make a speech. I can't cook, so you want to eat? Somebody can help me. So somebody, and they became my regular people who helped me. They changed throughout the years, but someone always came to the rescue. It had nothing to do with the management of Center City Churches, the management of the program. It had nothing to do with them.
The bureaucrats.
The bureaucrat, right.
The suits.
And they would and they would get mad sometimes because I would never call them for help, but I need to call them for help because I had 100 people. 60 people in there. What I need to call them for help for? The help was right there with me. But they wanted to. I never learned to do that well. There's a lot of things I didn't learn how to do well.
I think we're all guilty of that.
Yeah, I've never learned how to deal with higher management. I never got along well that way.
With higher management.
Yeah, I never talked the talk or walked the walk or knew how to even walk the walk with them. I never, even when I was director of Christian Ed in the different churches, the maintenance man was always my best friend. The maintenance man and the secretary. Those are the best people in the world. And I never could get close to the politician types. I never. They told me everything I needed to know. The maintenance man and the secretary. So I guess I was not supposed to be that upper management type. They would get very angry with me.
I think, I could see them getting angry with you, but I think you would make great upper management. Yeah, absolutely.
They didn't. I tried to.
Well, they
didn't
being good at upper management is different than becoming upper management, particularly if there are those established forces in the position that have the capacity to make sure you never get there.
I think that if they were sometimes you think you ought to know something because you are upper management. You ought to know how to do something, blah, 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 blah. You have the degree, you have all of this. But then there comes along this person who doesn't have all those things that you have. And they just do it. And they do it better than you do it. And I think you ought to embrace them. You ought to be glad they're there.
Well, that would be
learn.
That would be the logical thinking.
Hey,
right.
Here she is. Here he is. They could do this.
Help us.
Let them do it instead of feeling, however they feel, intimidated,
feel inadequate.
But they just know how to. They know how to do their thing over here. They don't know how to do your whole job. They don't know how to do all the things that you do, but they're just good at this thing over here. So
see, they may not. They may not see you in the sense. Let me rephrase that. They can see that you do the job that you're supposed to be doing very well. What you don't realize they see is the capacity to take that skill set and do their job just as well. See, you're demonstrating roles and responsibilities with the group that you're leading that they should be demonstrating with individuals that they're providing leadership for. And so they're threatened by you. They're threatened by because they can see that you have the skill set. You may not see it because you've not been necessarily exposed to it. But if you're in positions of leadership where you are the key or chief decision maker, you can see everybody. You see people. You can tell people who are suited to do your job. In any position of leadership I've ever been in, I could give you names of people who could do my job. I think part of being a leader is first you have to be able to identify those people and then strengthen them so that they can do your job. I think that's one of the roles of a leader, is to have a short list of folks who can replace you. Now, they may not know that they have that capacity, but if you give them opportunities to exercise those roles, once they're given, it's like being thrown into the pool. You know he can swim. You've seen him swim. He doesn't realize he can swim. And he thinks he can't, so he won't take the little wings off. But if you throw him in the pool, he'll swim. Now, the swim instructor knows all of the people who have the capacity to swim. The swim instructor knows people who shouldn't be in the water either. Don't let him get in the water by himself. Stay with him. Mm-hmm. Because he don't have no sense. He's going to take the wings off and drown, and we'll all be in jail. All right, if I see him in the pool without supervision, all y'all getting fired. All right. So, you know, but you can see, why is this person still with the little wings? Well, they not coming. Take the wings off that kid and push him in the pool. He needs to overcome that. And so there's people that have the capacity. So they know what you have. But, you know, a lot of times people who are in key decision making, people who are in positions to make key decisions, are not leaders. They're in charge. And that's a problem. It's a problem when someone is in charge, but not the leader. Because they're operating in the role and exercising the authority of the leader, but not necessarily for the good of the whole, which they are leading. They're just there. They're on a power trip. They're on an ego trip. They're on an insecurity protective mission. They're on all kinds of things, but they're not providing what is necessary. And that it poses a whole host of issues and problems. They could be taking direction from someone else because they don't really feel comfortable or know. Then you have those people who have folk that are capable around them. They won't take advice from them. Most times, by default, no one is in position of leadership, in theory. No one is in a position of leadership without the consent of those who are being led.
That's so true.
The leader is not there on their own. They are there by the consent of those that are being led. So, in theory, those that are being led don't want to be led astray. They want to succeed. So they put their faith and trust in the person leading them. If they see that the leader is doing something wrong, they will say something. If the leader could get his or her ego out of the way, just listen to them. They'll tell you what to do.
Yes, they will.
So take it, it ain't about you. It's about the whole. So if you could just to check the ego a little bit, and then you reinforce their decision to follow you. They know you don't know all things, but at least you'll listen. I mean, they don't want to lead. One, they may not be capable of it, and two, they may not have the time, energy, effort, or the capacity to do so. But that doesn't mean that they can't provide leadership in spurts, because the role goes back and forth. It goes back and forth. Someone who is following is going to be a great leader in a particular moment, because the leader does not know everything.
Right.
And that's one of the biggest mistakes leaders make. They present themselves as know-it-alls. You should have a workable solution for most problems, but that doesn't mean that you know everything or that your solution is right. But you should put something forward.
That is.
I mean, this is not rocket science, but leaders they think because of their role that they're superior to everyone else when they're not. They're generally the least.
That is. I was a leader. I never thought of myself as a leader. I just thought I ran a soup kitchen. I didn't think leader type. Mm-hmm. But you're right about they'll come to you, because it was someone who came to me and said we need to pray at lunchtime. And we prayed for the rest of the 17. It was someone who came, a group of people who came to me and said we need to start a newspaper. We need to have a little newspaper. And so we did a newspaper. Someone came to me and thought of the program that we had that what was the name of it? Center for Hope. So a group of people thought of that, and we did that together. Mm-hmm. So what you're saying is really true. Even though I didn't think of myself as a leader, I thought of myself as kind of one of the group. I was just in charge, you know. But that's absolutely right. And that's exactly what happened. They actually told me what to do and what they'd like to see, and then we worked on it together.
Right.
And then we worked on it together, and those who could take the lead in one thing, and somebody else took the lead in another thing, and we got it done.
Right, and they became leaders.
And they
in their
right.
own right,
in
that sphere of influence, and in that mission. So you unlock the potential that everyone has by giving them the opportunity to lead their own visions. That's what leaders are supposed to be doing.
Wouldn't it be so much better if we did that instead of having, like you say, someone in charge?
Right.
That kind of blocks your imagination and blocks you in, because what they say must go, and they're not going to listen to what you have to say, or you know,
Right.
or they're going to let you do it and say nothing, and they're just going to look at you, and then you're going to do something else, and they're going to look at you. Then one day they're going to say, you know, we're giving you your walking papers. You out of here. You out of here. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You're gone. You know, after all of things that you accomplished with this group of people.
Well, that's bad leadership. Those are bureaucrats. The suits. The suits don't care, and that's unfortunate. In an ideal world, excuse me, that's so inappropriate on broadcast. You're supposed to hit the mute button.
Oh,
right. Then there's no need to clear your throat on the air. You could do that. You hit the little button in there.
Nobody hears that.
No one hears that. But sometimes it adds for dramatic effect. Never pass up the opportunity for drama.
Before you do it or while you're doing it? Wow, when did that thought come into your head?
What, hitting the button?
No. If you have to clear your throat, do you say, is this a...
You know when you have to clear your throat.
I know, but do you know when you have to hit the button?
Yeah, you know you have to hit the button.
Is this a dramatic moment, or
sometimes it's done?
Sometimes
it's done for dramatic purposes.
Oh, okay.
If you do it right, when you want to say something about, then you just hit the button. You hit the button, so you're just like, oh, who are you talking about? I just mentioned today I must hit the mute button by accident.
Oh.
Yeah, it's radio tricks. Of course, this is something you can see, but it's really a radio show. I love radio.
I like radio too.
I love radio. Radio's is like,
I have very pleasant memories about radio.
Pull your mic up.
Oh,
yeah.
I have very pleasant memories about the radio.
Radio is drama of the mind. So you can listen. You can't see it, so you use the perfect set on the perfect stage, which is the mind of the hearer. They'll create the environment that you are suggesting, and they'll see it the way that they think it should be seen.
Like the end of the world. It's the end of the world. We're being invaded by Martians.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, mass hysteria. But on the leadership on the suits, ideally the suits would be a collection of leaders.
Real leaders.
Right.
In charge people.
Right. And they bring their collective leadership experience. So like boards, if you will.
Oh,
boards.
What they could do if they would like that.
Boards should be effective leaders. And there's different ways to lead, but they should all be effective leaders. Because if a board is not made up of effective leaders, then the board cannot hold accountable their employee, which would be the executive director or the person responsible for the executive decisions of the organization.
I haven't seen very many good boards.
Because most boards are not made up of leaders. They're made up of people who want to be in charge. I'm in charge.
Gosh.
So what qualifies you to be here on the board? I'm going to be in charge. That's all they need. So now they're in charge. Okay. So, and they're really, you know what these folk are best at?
What?
Stopping stuff. That's what they're good at. They haven't got the capacity to move anything forward or come up with an idea, but they sure know how to stop something. And in some towns, they have that down to a science.
Do you know of a good board? I mean, that you have been part of. Or
I'm not a good board person. I could be, but I don't. I do not have the temperament, so I generally don't. I don't serve on boards. I've been asked to serve on boards, but I'm not. I don't have the temperament. Boards are absolutely essential, but I'm not I don't have the temperament. It amazes me. I sit in amazement and awe every Saturday that I am actually the president of the Greater Hartford African American Alliance. Because in my mind, I don't have the temperament for that. But it's a funny role. It's like a board member, but also an executive director. And the organization is unique. So that's probably why. But like city council or board of ed or board of some organization or some nonprofit, I don't have the I don't have the temperament.
Those are totally different. Those are political kind of things that people do.
Well, no, I don't think so. Like say I was going to be on the board of the Blue Hill Civic Association or the Artist Collective or the United Way. I'm not good at that stuff.
Either am I.
Because I don't have the temperament to sit in a room with people and have a discussion and a debate about stuff that needs to get done. I understand it. It has to happen. But I'm not that guy. I'm not that guy. I can't contain myself. To me, it's utter foolishness and waste of time. We know what needs to be done. Why are we talking about this? And that's just that's a toxic environment to introduce to a process that is meant to
be a process.
Be a process to come up with the best thing to do for the whole. Mm-hmm. So I'm much better at executing. So I'm indifferent to the way you want it done. If you all decide that's what you want to do, I'm good. I don't need to agree with it. I need to know what you want done. So I have no problem in, I'm not going to change what you all want or once you decided to do it because I don't think it's the right thing to do. But I can't have that. I don't do well with that. I can't. Even thinking about it causes me stress.
Really? I was on several boards. I was terrible. I was terrible. I was not very good. And I they gave us little assignments. I couldn't do them. One board I just left. I didn't even tell them.
Just stop showing up. See, I'm like that.
I just left. I just didn't come anymore. And I always, when I think about it, I really feel guilty because I really like the people that I was, but I couldn't concentrate on those little tiny details that they were concentrating
it takes a certain
on. I couldn't do it.
Certain person. My hat goes off to every person that serves on a board. Admirable work. It's not easy work. It's thankless, and
that's Vicky work.
Oh, Vicky Fennell, she
Vicky
loves that stuff. Oh, she loves it. You get into the details and this, that.
Yes.
My wife serves on all kinds of boards. She's a good board person.
I'm not good.
People are good board people, but and I appreciate that. They are necessary. But I'm gonna call someone stupid.
You'd call someone stupid?
Absolutely. We're going to get there, and it won't take long. Because that's what I'm saying. I don't want to have a discussion about this. Why are we talking? That's my start off tone. Why are we talking about this? Well, because, a decision needs to be made about this. I said, this is ridiculous. And that's the stupidest idea I've ever heard. This is what we need to do. But see, that's not deliberative. Now, if you're in charge of something,
the director can very easily
get away with that
and manipulate the board. I think the director,
I've seen boards manipulated by the executive director. Oh, absolutely.
Problems that there are no problems, but you want some situation to come to light. So you think, what are we gonna do? I remember the executive director went to the board and said, "What are we gonna do about Cleo? What about Cleo?" But at that point, it just got.
Yeah, well, boards, that's where you need to have good leadership on boards, because the board has to contain the executive.
And if you can't make him do anything, if he did, you give the executive director 5 things that he must accomplish, blah, 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 and he doesn't accomplish them, why is he still the executive director? Why is he still year after year after year?
Because it's his board.
And that's
it's
right.
his board.
That's right. It's his board. Why do you keep this executive director on? He's not fulfilling what you have told him to do, and he's not doing it. And then so you get him, and then you retire him, and he gets his little.
I had a board member, chastise me the worst I've ever been chastised when I got fired from Hartford Public Access Television. Not board members that were there at the time. A prior, like one founding board member called me up and all but cussed me out because they said, "I can't believe what I just heard." What are you talking about? You broke the cardinal rule. How could you be? Is your responsibility to stack the board with your supporters. I fundamentally disagree with that. I think that, first of all, it's incorrect, but that's where a lot of people's heads are. They build the board with people who are subordinate to them.
Right.
That is the death of an organization.
And that is what they say happened to Artist Collective also. That it was Dolly's board. I don't know how it is now.
Well, she's since she's no longer there in that capacity. But Dolly's organization is a little bit different. The founder syndrome. These are things that are, well documented. It's not unique to the, Artist Collective. Founder syndrome. Hartford Public Access, accesstv.org is like a poster child for founder syndrome. There is no other voice here but mine when it comes to decisions.
It's just yours.
Because it's mine. And so if I get hit by a car tomorrow, it'll cease to be. Like, that's the worst case scenario. It's my non-profit give back extension of my business, if you will. But for a public organization that's supported by public dollars, founders' demise should not be the end of the organization. But founders can have such a presence that by their association, nothing happens without their okay or consent. And depending upon the personality of the founder, it just becomes a natural byproduct. And the kind of individual that Dolly is, she commands respect.
Mm-hmm.
And she is a force to be reckoned with. And she knows what she's doing. And there are those individuals, when you come into their presence, your first thought is, how can I make them happy? I don't want to disappoint them. The standards are high. And you think to yourself, well, what should I do? I mean, I live in a house that I don't own this house. I won't say who does. But when we moved here, we had the cable guy come. The cable guy came here and he says, you have any cables installed? I said, yeah. He says, I'm not drilling in the side of this house. He says, there's no way in the world I'm putting a drill in the side of this house. I have to talk to so and so before I do that because this the cable guy. There's only one hole in this house. That's where the cable is. There are no holes. The electricity to this house is underground. There are no holes in this house. There's the hole from the street into where the cable comes in. The other one is from the back of the house to the garage to take electricity. That's it.
That's because the owner did not want.
No.
You're not making any holes.
You're not making any holes in this house. Fear of God struck him when he thought. I said, "Well, all right." So we had to reschedule and everything because the individual commands that kind of certain people bring that, and Dolly brings that. So if Dolly right now went over to the collective and asked for something to be done, there would be no question.
It would be done.
It would be done. There are people like that. And so founders, if you're lucky enough to have them, have that kind of impact. They have that impact. And so founder syndrome many times takes over organizations, and it can be the death of an organization. Peace Train, which is an old institution, used to do you remember Peace Train? They used to do bluegrass, and they used to do festivals in Bushnell Park every year. That was real big. I never forget the Peace Train. The guy that founded Peace Train lost his organization because the board took over. So it could be either way.
The board could get rid of you.
The board can get rid of you, and then you can have a board that's subordinate to you. So there has to be the right dynamic. People have to own their roles. And so if you build the board correctly, the board is there for
who's building the board?
The board is generally the board is self-sustaining.
So the board so you have the initial board, whoever chooses them.
Right, and you have to have a good board president. The board president has to be a good leader who employs the rules that we were talking about earlier, thus building the capacity of leadership in the board who could take over in his or her absence. That has an understanding and a dedication to the long-term viability of the institution for which they are the brainchild of. The board is the institution. And then they have an executive director who then executes their decisions. And so you have to have the right people, and institutions that last and are long and are viable and are vibrant have that dynamic. They have that dynamic. And there's many different ways to get there, and some work better than others, and depending upon the personalities of the folk involved. It's like putting together a good basketball team, which Gene Auriemma has a particular skill set for. And so, every board member brings a new dynamic, but the one thing that is horrible for boards in the public situations like schools and councils and things like that is when the board has reverence for their singular employee, and they become a subordinate, and thus they become an extension of the staff of the leader. And then they lose their capacity to be objective and hold accountable. It's a delicate balance, and it's a fight back and forth. They're there to keep each other in check. A good executive director could has the capacity to say, well, I can't carry out your mission any longer, so I respectfully resign.
How often does that happen?
It happens. Sometimes it happens in a horrible way because they're trying to make you resign, and then you give them the gift that they want. So I mean, all of this goes back and forth. But for me, I'm not a good board member. I understand what needs to be done. I just don't have the temperament. I can't come and we talk about where to put a trash can in the building. I can't. I was a member of my NRZ. I went to the first NRZ meeting in my neighborhood. I was on it. Went to one meeting, never showed up again. I felt bad.
You never showed up again?
I can't do it. I can't do it. The Soto, that South Downtown. I can't sit in those meetings. I can't. I could attend them, but I can't sit there as a member making a contribution to a issue. You know, someone's got graffiti on it. Well, let's go over there and paint it off. How are we talking about this? 6 months.
About going over there and painting.
It's a problem. It's only a problem because we're talking about it. What are we going to do to fix it? Well, someone has... No, I'm out. So I'm not... Well, it's needed, but I'm not the one to be able to do that.
I hear you.
Yeah.
And as you speak, I can see why I never made it. As you speak, I said, that's why? Is that why I just never made that?
Right. Well, we're the same sign. You know, both of us are Aquarians.
I never made it either. But I thought I could. I didn't. But I couldn't. I never did. I let people down. I just couldn't do that. Mm-mm. I hate meetings anyway. I hate a lot of meetings. Once a month meeting is, but every time you turn around, you gotta go to a meeting.
You have to like meetings to be on a board.
They talk about nothing. They accomplish nothing.
Well, it seems that way, but it's needful conversation. There has to be that debate has to happen.
Oh,
so there's a consensus and all of that other kind of stuff. But that process, oh my God.
Well, I was always late, as late as I could be. You know, I guess I got tired of it. But I just once a month was my limit. Every week I had to go to a meeting and sit there and listen to this. As they demoted. I said, "Oh God, they needed to demote me right out of the meeting." But that was my downfall. I did not like meetings. Not a lot of meetings. Not every other day.
Yeah, people. But bless people's hearts, and God bless.
Who could stand that, right?
The folk who take the time to volunteer. That is an amazing thing.
Yes.
To do. Now, I could watch a board meeting. I've attended more board meetings than I can even think to count. Of all kinds. But I could not be on a board. It's one thing to watch it. It's another thing to actually. Because the observer doesn't have to do anything.
Right.
Except criticize. That's all the observer guys just sit around and criticize all the decisions. Or, you know, how could they make a decision like, you know, it's easy to sit there and do that when you're not the one sitting up there lamenting and going back and forth and hearing from people. I appreciate what everyone that serves on a board does. But
you're not the one.
No. I stopped going to city council meetings because I said out loud. People heard me. I said, that's why they assassinate people to get elected. I said, it's time for me to go.
That's what you said out loud?
I said that out loud. Jim Boucher said something at a board meeting. And I stood up and I said, that's why they assassinate elected officials. Stupid comments like that. And I knew it was time for me to leave. And I stopped going. I don't think I went to a board. I went to a city council meeting for 2 years after that. No disrespect to Jim. I mean, he just said something that rubbed me the wrong way. But that's not the kind of things you should be saying in a public meeting.
Especially if you found him dead the next day.
Well, he's not dead. So.
I know he isn't. Thank you.
Bless his heart. I'm sure people feel that way about me.
He was the name back then.
Yes, he was.
He was the name.
Yeah. Hartford areas to rally together.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. That's a testament to their strength. But they were a force to be reckoned with. They put people on council. They got people elected to the state legislature. Hartford areas rallied together, had a Congress, and you don't show up at your own political peril. I dare you not to come to the Hart Congress.
Well, look how fast they went down.
These things happen.
Bam.
Politics. Because eventually you become someone's enemy. That's the nature of politics. Blood sport.
Goodbye. Mm-hmm. I really never thought they would stay gone. I thought it was something that would pass.
Their absence?
Yes.
No. See, things have a life cycle. They grow, they mature, and then the purpose for which they came about diminishes. Communities change, neighborhoods change, and the forces that cause things to happen are no longer there. That's just the life cycle. Unless there's a long-term plan to continue to be viable and be really embedded in serving the needs of the community, even when the community changes. That takes some long-term strategic thinking, and most people are not up for that. In my never to be humble opinion.
They would have had to change. They would have had to plan for the change.
Right, because the community they serve changed. Primarily the language. They no longer serve the community that's there, so. And then you have internal struggles and dynamics, and these things. It's hard. It's work to keep these things together. People don't like, and they poo-poo a lot of these organizations because they just don't like the things that the organizations do or stand for. But they organizations that are legacy. They don't just be legacy. There's a lot behind them. They build endowments. They build money. They build strategic plans. They have 5-year plans, 10-year plans, 20-year plans, and they're not about being in charge. They're about the viability of the organization. And so if you don't think that way and have people on the board who think that way and are dedicated to that end, your organization will be gone. And they don't care about naysayers. I get a kick out of folk that are naysayers about stuff that's going on. Your comments mean nothing to the folk that sit there making decisions. That's why you're outside making them. So if you really want to have an impact on things, there's ways to do it. But the institutions, they're not changing because you don't like them. That's funny. All right, I'm about to lose my little mind up in here. Okay. We end on a good note.
Okay.
Okay. Miss Cleo's here every Friday. I always enjoy talking to Miss Cleo. Uplifting.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
It's uplifting just to be here.
It's always good to have you. My friends will be back Monday. Jonathan Small will be here. We'll continue to have our conversation. All right. Check it out tomorrow morning. We'll repeat what we did today on tomorrow. And then Sunday morning will be Bible study. You all have a great rest of your day. All right. We'll see you next time. Be blessed. Have a great weekend. Bye.
Bye.